morning, good afternoon, whichever time of the day you decide to listen to this podcast. My name is Yannick Hicks. I'm the host of the American College of Healthcare Executive Healthcare Leadership Podcast, where we bring ideas and insights that would help you to continue to move up in your leadership as far as healthcare administration, whatever role that you're in. Our goal is to make you become better, wiser, and stronger. So today, I have no other than a very special guest. I'm going to do a little bit of intro because, his resume and curriculum vitae is extremely long, but I'm just going to keep it short. So we have Sandy Duke. Sandy is a physician, a surgeon for ears, nose, and throat. He actually went to Medical College of Georgia at Augusta University, so that was great. He also went to Duke. That's another thing for another story, right? That we'll talk about. But he also has his MBA, Master's in Business Administration from Emory University. He's he has his fellowship for the American College of Healthcare Executive. He's the current chair of the board for our Georgia chapter, which is, elite chapter for the American College of Healthcare Executives. He's the current clinical chief officer for Atrium Health Navicent, also the physician executive lead for Atrium, Atrium Health. So he has so much responsibility. He's also married to his beautiful wife. He lives over in Macon, Georgia. Sandy, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Yannick. It's truly an honor to be here today.
Okay, great, man. So Sandy, just to get started so they can learn a little bit more about you, your background. So what made you get into medicine in the first place? What made you get into medicine?
Then we got to go way back. Yeah, I've always wanted to be a doc. As far back as I can remember. Just even as a toddler, just had a drive to be in healthcare. My dad was a veterinarian, spent a lot of time at his office helping him. So it was around medicine, but I knew early on. I remember as a kid telling my dad that I used to joke with myself, I want to go into real medicine. And he was always a good sport about it. He didn't take offense, but I always knew that I wanted to go into medicine, knew I wanted to be a surgeon. And so, that was kind of really it. I honestly thought I wanted to be an OBGYN for a long time, wanted to deliver babies. And then kind of when I got into it, I knew I wanted a surgical specialty, and found my way to ENT. I had a mentor along the way. One time telling me, somebody said it's a gentleman's specialty. And so that resonated with me. And so I always aspired to that. And so I found my way to being an otolaryngologist, and did my residency at Wake Forest, and then moved to Macon after we finished training, and I've been here ever since.
Wow. So you're a gentleman indeed, aren't you?
Aspire to be, as I say.
Well, it's always a journey, but you went to that profession, so you become like the environment. So because we live it. Some people are not maybe gentleman-like, or that's more like humility, confident humility, some of those things. So that's good. And then so you started, and you also had your own medical practice with other ENT specialists for a couple of years. Tell us a little bit about that. I think that's also great for just health.
Yeah, that's a great point. So when I was selecting a practice, it was very important to me to be in a really robust, vibrant, growing practice. And so when we were selecting kind of where to live, and you look for that kind of perfect balance of how you want to practice, how you want to live. We selected Macon. It was near enough to family, but also the practice was growing. I was the sixth man in the group, and more importantly to me is it had a lot going on. So we had just opened a surgery center, so an ambulatory surgery center, single specialty in ENT, private practice. And then from that platform, really got engaged in what we could call just collectively the business of medicine. And so started looking at how we could branch out. We ultimately bought land and built a medical office building, which we occupied a portion of it. We partnered with pediatricians built a second building, then became a tenant, and we had other specialties in this adjacent community who came in and rented from us. We bought land in another community, so we developed so we formed an LLC that became our real estate holding company. We similarly and concurrently did an ancillary services, so we formed an LLC, bought a CT scanner, plain film, put in a second CT scanner that became our imaging branch. We put in allergy testing, laboratory testing, et cetera. So we did that and then grew the ASC volume. So by the time I think over the course of 2 decades that I practiced, we had 7 LLCs, including an S corp that we ran things through. Started looking at taxation, the finances of it, just the full gamut of it. And that's really where I got my start and passion for, if you will, the business side of healthcare. And when I sat down to start kind of thinking through my fellowship many years later, it was only then through that sort of retrospective lens, I could look back and say, yeah, this is really where I got my start in business. And so I had a nice kind of foundation of business acumen that I kind of learned over the years from running that, and everything from contract negotiation to vendor relations to you name it. It was kind of the school of hard knocks, but kind of learned along the way.
You learned it before you got your MBA, right?
Oh my gosh, yeah. It was I did an executive MBA, and they kind of say you learn it on Monday and implement it on Tuesday. I had a lot of lived experiences that I could apply, so it was pretty cool.
Wow, that's that's incredible, and having just partnership, getting into business side of healthcare, just amazing because sometimes sometimes partnership don't work, or sometimes things, but you know it's very common in healthcare. So you run that practice, and you're learning now about more about the business side of healthcare. You're intrigued by it. You're learning a great deal from it, and then you sort of made a shift to healthcare administration. Tell us what made you to make that shift. What were some of the lessons that you learned in that process?
Well, that's a little bit of a journey as well. So I'm a big believer that the more you put into something, the more you get out of it. So if you can imagine, as a surgeon, we were aligned with a healthcare system in Macon, it's then called the Medical Center of Central Georgia, and I started getting involved in the medical staff governance, in getting involved in committees. And I can remember even back to my first couple of years in practice, I got on the Surgical Services Executive Committee. I was on one of the boards of one of the insurance companies we were starting up, and really started volunteering and getting involved on the governance side of the hospital. And along the way, probably served in every committee that you can imagine at the hospital. So I was on the MEC, and then ultimately in the last half of my career, I was on the board of the hospital. And so our hospital, about a 1,000-bed, multiple facility hospital system, billion and a half dollars in annual revenue, and it was the physician leader on the board. And so the kind of the way that the arc of that journey kind of went was, we recognized as a health system that there was an impetus for consolidation, and so it became a journey for us to find a hospital partner. And so out of that, we started interviewing hospital systems, and so we talked to the Atlanta systems, and then ultimately we started working with Carolinas Medical Center out of Charlotte. And then when we started talking about coming together, it became clear they had to rebrand since they were going to be expanding outside of Charlotte. So they changed their name to Atrium right about the time we came into the health system. And so I helped write the definitive agreement between our health system and their health system. And when we consummated that deal, we got 2 seats on their board, and I was one of those 2. And so I was on the big board at Charlotte, and every month would go to Charlotte and spend time with those leaders, talking about kind of big ideas for healthcare. Where's healthcare going? What are we doing about payers? How are we managing network adequacy? How are we going to solve for rural? And it was just so exciting to think about kind of the big rocks, if you will, of healthcare. And somewhere in that journey, got the tap on the shoulder from our CEO and the CEO of Atrium to say, you ought to think about a career in administration. And it was outrageous to think about walking away from a career I loved. I loved what I did. I loved taking care of my patients. And so I want to be very clear, like I did not walk away from clinical practice out of burnout or dissatisfaction or anything like that. It really became just an excitement and an energy to try to solve some of the more complicated things. And I truly believe that in healthcare of the future, clinicians need to be at the table being the architects of what the future of medicine looks like. And I think for too long, we as physicians, practitioners have ceded that responsibility to career administrators. And I don't mean that in any kind of pejorative way, but I just think that as a physician, as someone who's done it for decades, who's been there, who felt the frustrations of gaps in networks, lack of resources. I've done rural healthcare. I've had a satellite in Taylor County. I mean, just you felt what it feels like to not have anesthesia, to not have neurology. You have a perspective that others don't have. So out of that passion and the opportunity that came along, I almost felt like it was a calling to say, all right, I'm willing to do it. I'm willing to kind of step into that. Even though I love what I do, all I've ever wanted to do was to take care of patients. I was like, all right, I will do it. Not without a lot of engagement from my family and support and recognition that, I was basically starting a new career, kind of at 50. So, but it was all right.
Boy, that's amazing. And as you're sharing this, right, most people become leaders or even go to greater heights in leadership when someone saw something in them that they didn't see in themselves, or someone brought up an idea that opened their mind. I remember when I was in pharmacy school, I never had any leadership role, and I wanted to go for maybe treasurer because, I wanted to eat all the money for the organizations, right? I'm just kidding. But I just wanted to start somewhere. And one lady that was the current officer, she said, you should become the president-elect of our chapter American Pharmacists Association. I was like, whoa, I was going to go for secretary. So she saw something. I said, hey, that's what I'm going to go for. It became the president-elect president. So it's amazing sometimes where maybe a particular position or role and stuff, or maybe even leadership, someone says something and you probably hadn't seen it. It gets you to, especially you rose to the occasion after giving it some thought, because decisions are made in the boardroom where things are happening, not over in the floor. So if maybe physicians or clinicians are being affected, is because the people at the top or the people in the boardroom are making the decisions for them. So one of the few that have decided to step it up and take over that opportunity. So now by the way, I love how when you're there, you're always serving, always had that opportunity to volunteer and serve. Where did that come from? And what was like you can give to someone
I don't know.
to just have a
My
attitude
kids
to
say it's
serve.
my kids say it's an affliction. I don't know. I've just always feel that way. And like I said, I truly believe the more you put in, the more you give, the more you get out of it. I've always had that mindset. There's a new book out that Patrick Lencioni talks about the six types of working genius.
Yeah.
And one of them is the enabler, and it's not an enabler like we tend to think about it in a negative way. It's just one of those things that some people have where they see a way to help others. They see a way to facilitate or enable a process or whatever it is. And that's me. I mean, I just see I see ways that I can help people. I can help move the process along. And it's just that clarity vision that I just I got that. I'll step in. Somebody said there's a problem. I want to help solve it. Process improvement, whatever you want to call it. I just have that. I just have that. So.
Wow. That's amazing because I definitely am a student of Patrick Lencioni. We can have a talk all day long on I
Yeah.
use him a lot as far as and I'm also an enabler, so it's pretty interesting. I'm also an enabler in his six, working genius framework. So so now you're making a big transition at 50 and even going for your MBA and some of that. What were some of the challenges that you experienced in that process?
Wow. So probably the biggest challenge was sort of the deceleration injury, if you will, from um, practice and working. I was really working two jobs by that point with practice and running the practice and also all the board governance and stuff I was doing to doing my MBA kind of concurrently as I stepped off. So I did my MBA right around um, 2020, 2021, the pandemic, right? I stepped out into administration 2 weeks before the pandemic hit. So,
Yeah.
as Mike Tyson says, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. I kind of stepped off and was like unboxing, and I found out people were stealing gloves from the emergency room. And I stood up incident command 2 weeks after I walked in the door and ran it for 2 years. And um, it so I can't overstate how much that both challenged me and grew me, if you will. It was the crucible of my leadership, and so I really did have to figure all that out. It was also right as we were new in a bigger organization, so I remember we were in the throes of it, and I wanted to set up PCR testing and wanted to buy this $1 million piece of equipment to have at our facility. And I'm rounding, so give me some grace on that. I don't remember exactly how much it was, but it was very expensive. And the organization said, no, we're going to have all the samples sent to Charlotte to our hub. And I literally had to get on the phone and say, we're 1,000-bed level one trauma center in the center of the state that provide testing for the entirety of Central Georgia and South Georgia. I am not putting samples in a courier to drive it to Charlotte because you think you're the center of the world. I mean, you can imagine as a young leader to have to talk to someone in Charlotte that way. But it was sort of that moment where I had to kind of put my foot down and say, if you don't think we're big enough, drive down here and take a look around, because we are not some little spoke to your hub. And it was really kind of that moment where you had that period where I had to say, this is who I am as a leader, and I'm willing to step out and kind of lead in the space. And so I just remember that like it was yesterday. And it was one of those moments, one of the harder things I had to do as we're trying to, integrate into the system, manage the crisis, figure out who I am as a leader and what kind of leader I want to be. That was one of those moments. I always remember that.
Yeah. Wow, that's impressive. So what kind of leader you want to be? Or you
Oh,
are?
so it's interesting. So I've done, like as I've tried to kind of accelerate, and I'm a big about that. Like I'm like speed execution, like trying to get rolling. Here I am stepping into a very big role as my first leadership role. I was executive vice president and the number two at the organization. It was my first leadership role, like right into it. So I had to kind of accelerate. So I've done all those personality tests and try to figure out, who I am to understand because I think you have to know yourself first.
Yeah.
I'm a collaborative leader. Like number one, I'm a collaborative leader, and that's rare on my team that I've had when we were I'm on a pretty big team up in Charlotte. I'm the only one. I'm the only true collaborative leader on the entirety of the team. And it's kind of a gift. It's also kind of a curse. And what I mean by that is being a collaborative leader is slow. It's not quick. If you're the type of leader that can see the path and you're willing or feel like you have the right to just tell people everybody what to do, that's quick, right? But if
Yeah.
you feel like you have to get everybody's buy-in, or I want everyone's opinion. I'm not afraid to make a decision. It's not out of fear. But I truly feel like the best way forward is to get everybody on board. And I have a phrase that everybody like kind of says, which is we're all going to stack hands on this, right? So I'm going to come to you. I'm going to lay it out for you. I like to provide context. I bring my team together. I love to get everybody's input. I love to get everybody's sense of what's right, what's wrong, what factors. I want to understand everything. We're going to collaborate on it. And at the end of the day, at the end of the meeting, whatever it is, we're going to stack hands on what the pathway forward is. And then I'm going to hold you to account for that. Right.
Wow.
And so
Yeah.
you're welcome to speak your voice. You're welcome to tell me what you think. and I'm going to listen, and we're really going to include that in it. But at the end of the day, we may still choose to go in a somewhat different direction, and I expect you to stack hands on that. We're going to go. So that's sort of my thing, is we're all going to stack hands, and so my team knows that's the answer. But I'm a collaborative leader, and I truly think that it's the way to build the best culture of the organization, because everybody feels like they have a part in it, and I think if done well, it also it really hardwires in the changes you need to make. Whereas if I feel like at those times where you just come down, you say, this is how it's going to be, get on board or get off the bus, and you just go, you constantly have an echo of, are we really doing the right thing? People continue to question, you get sniping from the back. And that's where I get frustrated, and I find myself not to be quite as good a leader. So it's my little thing on collaboration.
No, that's good. You know, the saying, to go fast, go alone; to go far, go with others. It's, you know, that's definitely, you know, me. Sometimes I just want to move fast and quick, right? And then you have to realize, hey, you gotta take, you know, it's taking people to the top with you. It's taking people with you on the journey. I was talking to someone, I think it was 2 days ago, and to get surveys for a conference that they had to go through to get permission for this lady. I mean, she just, like, you know, it's just kind of like my way or the highway. I mean, it's just bad. I was like, wow, I would not want to work in that kind of leader organization where they want everything to go through them. You know, instead of like your process collaborative leader, the best ideas wins. It doesn't, you know, because that's what you're all about. But let's shift. So now you're making, your transition, taking healthcare, and also you got involved with, you know, the ACHE process. You took 3 months to get your fellowship, right? I guess you're just smart, right? You just get it. You just you just get it. Some of us who take, you know, months or even years of preparation, but you just got it. So tell us about your ACHE experience, and you know, some of the lessons that you've learned, and, you know, of course, how you got to be in the board. And
Yeah. So you alluded to it a little bit, or I did, about so first off, so Delvecchio Finley was my CEO, and Delvecchio, as many of you may know, was the president of National ACHE, and he was the incoming president when I started thinking about ACHE, and I started thinking about it, and then really kind of got the idea that I wanted him to be the one to give me my diploma. So I wanted to come across the stage and shake the boss's hand. And the window was closing on the opportunity for that to occur. So I, in earnest, kind of to your point, sat down and said, I'd really like to get it this year. And I had about 3 months left to do it. And so I started looking at it. And that was when I realized, again, I made that decision after I realized that all the time as an ENT and all the time running the ASC and my business counted as the time that you needed as a healthcare administrator. And that's the real hurdle, right? And I had been to meetings and I'd gotten all the time. And so really it was like, hey, you just got to take your test. And I can take a standardized test. So I was like, no problem. So I just done my MBA, and so, yeah, so I put my head down. I had to fly to Winston-Salem over Christmas because it was the only testing center that had open slots to get it done before the end of the year. So I flew up to Winston-Salem, which is where I did my residency. I went back to one of my old haunts and had dinner, and then took my test, and then flew out on vacation. It was a pretty cool time. So got it done kind of end of, what year was that? I guess that was 22. I think that's right. And then walked. Delvecchio gave us, and several of us did it. You know, Lorraine, you referenced my wife. She did. John Michael did. Todd Dixon from our organization did. But a bunch of us kind of put our head down, got it done. And if you've heard me say that, a lot of I say just do it. That's kind of the philosophy I did, and got it done. And then got asked to be on the board, and then the things kind of fell together. Sort of the similar story to you. Got asked to be on the executive committee, and here I am. So
everything's just moving fast for you. Everything that you get in turns into gold, right?
Yeah, it's like, let's roll.
So, you know, now you're the current chair of the board, ACHE of Georgia. what is your vision and what are you looking to achieve, in your current role for the members?
Well, I think there's a couple things I'll say, and as a member board, you've heard me say it. The first thing is um, accolades aside, growth aside, whatever metrics aside, for me, it's about bringing value to our members and whatever that looks like. And so what I hope is if people are a member of ACHE, it's more than just letters behind your name. It's more than just a networking opportunity that can check a box. And I don't want to diminish the value of that, but it's about value add, whether that is one of our programs or education, whether it's the ability to call a colleague to say, hey, I have this difficult thing, give me an unbiased opinion, whether it is, whatever that is value. And so I know we have people that are different parts of their career. So we've really leaned in on early careerists and ways that we can do that. We've talked about a regional presence, so we've developed a regional strategy. But at the end of it, underneath of it all, it's for value. And I've challenged all of the committee chairs to think about within their span of control, how do you bring value to our members? Full stop. And that's the first thing I'll say. The second thing is, if you're going to measure me by something, I want to excel in that measurement. That's just another one of my afflictions is like if you're going to grade me, we're going to get an A. So there are 4 metrics by which we are measured. And so last year we attained 3 of those. And so those are, let me see if I can do them off the cuff, but they're growth. So that's our membership number. It's our programs, it's our survey, and it's our fellowship. The number of advancements we have. Those are our 4 pillars that we go by. And we got 3 of them last year. The only one we didn't get was we didn't achieve our fellowship goal, which for ACHE, for whatever reason, is a very difficult goal to achieve. And none of the large chapters have gotten in the past several years. It's just such a big aspirational goal. And so my sort of stake in the ground this year was I want to get all 4, and that would achieve us the Board of Governors Award. And no one has gotten a Board of Governors Award for the last several years. And so we were the only large chapter. We're almost 1,600 members. We're approaching the 5th largest chapter in the country, and we achieved Chapter of Excellence last year, and that was a huge accomplishment. We're really proud of that. And under Lindsay's leadership. And so I would love to get the Board of Governors Award next year. It's a big goal. It's auspicious. We are behind on fellowship advancement, but we are just wrapping up the Board of Governors course. I think the last day is actually today. We're in the window where people can get a scholarship for the cover the expense of the exam. But yeah, so I'm very much motivated by a metric. If you're going to grade us by something, let's exceed that. So, but those are kind of the things, value and performance, kind of things.
Yeah, I mean, like I was just telling you before this, podcast recording, attended our ACHE event last night. I mean, it was packed. A lot of new, saw a lot of new faces, new people. It just looks like it continues to grow. It's like, wow. I mean, it is packed for an evening event. So, that's impressive. So as we're, so what do you do? What do you do outside of work? What do you do outside of work for fun?
So I think the first thing I'll say is family. I mean, I'm a big believer. People talk about work-life balance. I don't know that it's a balance, but it's definitely harmony. And so for me, family is probably the biggest thing. Just love spending time with Lorraine and the kids. We have 5 kids, and just enjoy spending time with the family and all aspects of that. Probably the first and foremost, we love to travel. We travel a lot and are blessed to be able to do so. We go all over the world and are always got at least 1 or 2 in the chute that we're planning. And ideally outdoor. I love to be outdoor as much as I can. So you name it, I'm after it. So
yeah, that's good. I like outdoor, indoor, through the door. I mean, that's through the door. It doesn't matter. So that's really been great, Sandy. Thank you for really sharing your journey and insight whether it's leadership, your journey, your experience, and being a surgeon, an ENT, and business. I mean, you just continue to pivot, get an MBA, kind of changing kind of role, now leading ACHE. So let's say you come to the end of your healthcare leadership, and the end of the road, you have to give up every title that you have, every accomplishment, every content, and maybe three truth lessons that you've learned that you would like to pass on to these healthcare executives, whether they're early careerists, whether they're evolving their career, whether they're executive. What are three truths or lessons based on your experience that you'll pass on to them?
No, that's a really great thing. So you're talking a little bit about legacy and a little bit about wisdom, right? So I'll say
Yeah.
the first thing is it's kind of a sports metaphor, but don't leave anything on the field, right? And what I mean by that is don't do it halfway, right? At the end of the day, I want to hold my head up high every day and say I really gave it everything today. And if there's a day that I don't, I kind of ask myself, what did I do wrong? And so a little acronym I'll tell you that just to give you a little bit of wisdom is like the older I get, the more I do is you have to take care of yourself, and it starts with yourself because that's how you show up fully every day. And so uh, Lorraine is military and in her side hustle, if you will. And so there's a general who once said that you must steer an organization: sleep, think, eat, exercise, and read. That's your pearl for the day. And so I ask myself every day, have I done those things so that I can show up and steer the organization? And so that's the first thing. The second thing I say is I love to teach. Teach the next generation, right? Grow the folks that are behind you that are going to come, because one day in healthcare, you're going to need healthcare, and you hope you've grown the next generation to take care of you, right?
Yeah.
So I love to teach. My favorite thing to do when I was practicing was to teach residents. I still try to work with residents as much as I can. I have an early careerist program that I started when I was the lead of the physician executive committee that Lily Hinson has carried on, working with colleges and physicians who are contemplating a healthcare leadership role and kind of what that looks like. Not recruiting, but at least reflecting what a healthcare leadership role could look like. So as physicians come up, they're seeing kind of what that can be. I've had, I'm a big believer in the mentor program. You talked about that, and you talked about your mentor who saw something in you. And don't forget sponsorship. There's a difference between mentorship and sponsorship. So take the opportunity to sponsor someone, and that's really to advocate for them and to help move their career along and accelerate their career. So again, I'm kind of a big believer in that. And then I guess the third thing I would say is there's more than just work, right? So we talked a little bit about that harmony with your personal life. And so I try to be a scholar in other areas. And so person of faith, so my church and that, travel, my family and then just my other sort of hobbies: cooking, reading, other areas that I love. So those are kind of my sort of my pearls, if you will, that I will say is give back. We are blessed in so many ways. I volunteer on a bunch of boards, and so Goodwill, Making Volunteer Clinic, other things that I'm involved in to try to give back to the community, leave the world better than you found it.
Wow, that's incredible. So one of your stuff is one of your fun activities, cooking. Mine is eating, right?
There
You
you
want to cook? Even my mom said I'm a foodie. She doesn't know where the food go, but hey, God will help us. But I love your three truth, right? I mean, you have to take, it starts with you taking care of yourself, but it's getting sleep, eating, reading. I mean, we say the rule of five, whatever your rule of five is, but you have to start with yourself. And then the second point, teach the next generation, right? I mean, it's greater joy to just pass on your ideas and legacy to the next generation because someone else made the sacrifice for you and someone else poured into you. So you want to be a river, not a reservoir. And then, of course, you mentioned, of course, give everything that you've got, but there's more to life than just work. So have fun, be merry, do some other fun activities. That's what makes life worthwhile.
That's right.
So thank you very much, Sandy. This was an excellent podcast. I know with you, we can go till maybe 2 hours or so, but I know you're also, busy with traveling today to New York City. But thank you for your wisdom. Thank you for your just being your leadership with the board. I do see ACHE of Georgia continue to grow to newer heights. So thank you for your time. I appreciate you.
It's truly an honor. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.